This is Join Us in France, episode 41. Hello, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elise.
And we welcome you to the Join Us in France travel podcast. Elise is a professional tour guide, has a cold, and she's also an art historian and a really good storyteller.
When I have a voice.
Today's show is for procrastinators.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because if you don't have the time to listen to very many of our episodes because maybe you're going to Paris like tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh my God. Make sure you catch the right plane.
This would be a good episode for you to listen to because we're going to be hitting a lot of important things for you to know. If you read about Paris as I do, and I'm sure if you're going to Paris tomorrow, you've probably been reading a little bit. You know that every blogger in the universe has an idea about what you should do and what you should skip and all of that in Paris. And we've talked about a lot of wonderful places, and we often end up saying, oh, you should go. But today we're going to try and tell you a few places that maybe we think you can skip. And we might not agree, actually, the two of us. So we'll see how we go. The article that inspired me to do this is an old article, actually. It's from March 2001.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's very old. Written by somebody called Christina Henry de Tesson. Christina Henry de Tesson. Probably a French person.
Right,
That sounds like a
it.
French name. And it's called 10 Things Not to Do in Paris. So we'll review what she said and add our own ideas on top of it. And if you've listened to every single episode, bless you. And we'll still talk about stuff that we haven't mentioned before. So do not worry. All right, little music to get us in the mood, and we'll come right back and talk about places you can skip in Paris. All right, we are back, and we're going to be talking about Paris. But before we get to that, you've probably noticed some changes on our websites. And if you haven't, shame on you.
Shame, shame, shame.
You should visit it more often because it's really cool. Now, last week Gavin added the episodes map. Thank you again, Gavin. It's wonderful.
You, Gavin.
And I've also added a couple of new ways for you to support the show. Because, hooray, last month in October 2014, just in case you're listening in, 5 years from now, which is possible, we made enough money for the show to pay its own bills. Barely, but hey, woohoo, we're going in the right direction. So thank you. Keep it up, please, everybody. But I've added a couple of new ways for you to help us make a little bit of a commission so we can keep the show going. You can, of course, use our Amazon link. You go to joinusinfrance.com/Amazon. And the other two ways you can help us is if you need to buy some wine, and honestly, who doesn't? Elise is making a face. You don't need any wine?
No. I was just thinking of the word need. I was like, want to, I understand. Need is more other kinds of things you keep in the house.
That is true. You're right about this. Anyway, so if you want to buy some wine, you can go to wine.com, and that's for U.S. customers. I'm not sure if it works in Canada, to tell you the truth. I haven't tried it. I know it works in the U.S. in most states. And you can buy some wine and get great deals. And they have an amazing selection of French wines. That's why I used to buy wine from wines.com back when I lived there. Because, there were a lot that you couldn't find anywhere but online. So we recommend them.
That's a great idea.
And the other way is hotels. Because obviously, if you are coming to France, I suspect you're not going to be sleeping under a bridge.
This is a weird show today. It really is.
We're off to a funny start. And you're going to be booking a hotel. Well, I carefully reviewed all the programs that would help let us earn a small commission on recommending them. And the Expedia offering is really, really good because, for one thing, if you change your mind about the hotel, you don't pay any fees. You can just change hotels, and they have really, really good customer service. So on the right-hand side of the website, you will find a little banner ad for wines.com and the hotels, and that'll take you straight through to Expedia.
And they have a good choice.
And they have great choices. They have every hotel in the world. And you don't have to book the ones that you see displayed there. Any hotel you book, in Paris, somewhere else, it doesn't matter. So that is something for you to consider. Okay. I'm done with the advertising.
She's done with the advertising. And you've come out from under your bridge, I hope.
Yeah, no, don't stay in a bridge in Paris. Oh, you won't like it.
Although I have to say that it's generally a little bit safer than in some other places.
You tried it?
No, no, I haven't. But
looks safe enough to
it
you.
looks safe enough, actually. It really does.
She's fierce. That's why.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing this article mentions is don't shop on the Champs-Élysées. As a matter of fact, personally, I wouldn't even go. What do you think?
Well,
imagine you only have like 7 days.
Well, I think that part of the thing about all of these do's and don'ts, except for a couple of them, which where it doesn't matter actually how long you're staying in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that sometimes a lot of these do's and don'ts depend just about how much time you have to spend in Paris.
Correct.
And I think the other thing is, and this is just having come back from having spent a week in Paris with a wonderful group of women where the majority of them had never been before.
Mm-hmm.
So there were certain things that they wanted to see, and there's no point in trying to tell people not to.
That's true. If you want to see it, go see it.
If you've grown up with an image of something that you must see when you go to a certain place, I think you have to see it for yourself and then make your decision about what to do.
I agree.
And I think the problem with the Champs-Élysées is, yes, it is true. It is absolutely déclassé. It is not at all like what it used to be. It is much, much, much less of a high-end, classy place. And that has changed the atmosphere around it because you have a lot of inexpensive chain restaurants and what I would call ordinary chain stores that are there.
Right, so you're going to have
that you can find anywhere else, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And it's too bad because the French government in its tourist office still insists on calling the Champs-Élysées the most beautiful avenue in the world. It isn't. It just is not.
No, I don't.
It's a very big, broad avenue.
Busy, lots of cars.
Very busy. Lots of huge sidewalk. Lots of crowds. Unfortunately, also lots of pickpockets. That's something that is not even mentioned here, but it is in fact a real problem on the Champs-Élysées.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there is still the Vuitton store.
Yeah.
And there are 2 or 3 other stores like that people line up to go into. And if you are a traveler from certain parts of the world, I guess that becomes an important thing to do as a kind of pilgrimage to certain marketing places. But basically, I would say, yes, I agree. Don't shop on the Champs-Élysées. It is really for those people who have to have certain brands and who want to say that they want to be there.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that it's not necessarily a place to go. However, if you're going to go to see the Arc de Triomphe, which is really impressive,
yeah,
and is at the end of the Champs-Élysées, what happens is if you go to the Arc de Triomphe, you're at the end, and you get a great view looking down the Champs-Élysées. It might just be enough to be able to see it that way.
Yeah.
I certainly would not recommend shopping on the Champs-Élysées. If you're going to talk about going just to see what it looks like, you can spend 10, 15 minutes there and get back on the bus or metro and you've done it,
Yeah.
But there's nothing special about the shops there whatsoever. And it's kind of a shame because the old luxury feeling of it has simply disappeared.
Right. And this blogger recommends, if you're into, if you're fashionista, I guess,
right,
that you should instead go to Rue des Francs-Bourgeois in Le Marais, or Avenue Montaigne, or Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré.
Right.
Places like that are more genuinely French.
Right, but just a
and
couple of words
high-end.
about this. I happen to really think that the area around Rue des Francs-Bourgeois in the Marais is wonderful for shopping.
Uh-huh.
The Marais is wonderful for shopping. It's also a very popular, very touristy, very trendy area that's
Yeah.
very crowded, but it is one of the areas of Paris where you have really unique little boutiques of all kinds.
Which is
whether-
really good because
which is fun.
well, the problem with the big avenues like Champs-Élysées is that the rents are so high
Right.
that it's only chain stores that can afford it. You
Right,
know, honestly,
exactly.
the mom and pop have been pushed out a long time ago.
But these are not low end. These are, I would say,
Yeah, yeah.
medium high end. But you find clothing for men, clothing for women, shoe stores, jewelry stores, every kind of boutique imaginable. And it is boutiques. It's not big stores.
Yeah, they probably have like little boutiques that sell hats and things like that.
Right.
You know, that are really
Specialized.
specialized and that you don't find everywhere. I mean,
And really, if someone is interested in getting themselves a nice article of clothing that's really Parisian and really French, it's a great place to go.
Right.
But we're not talking cheap, and we're not
No.
at the same time we're not talking Avenue Montaigne. Personally, I went there
Avenue
once
Montaigne
in
is
my
pretty
life.
high, yeah.
It's really for Chanel and Dior and all of the stores. That's where they have their boutiques that are pretty much the ready-made, but it's very, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And if you want to walk down Rue Avenue Montaigne, it's a great way to get an idea of where the very wealthy and very famous sometimes shop. You might just bump into a movie star, whether you know it or not.
cool.
And Rue de Faubourg Saint-Honoré, it's probably in between. It's very chic.
Uh-huh.
It's high end without being as high end as Avenue Montaigne.
Yeah.
But it's not cheap. It's very, very much a high end kind of thing. You will see some boutiques that tend to be high end chains. There are a couple that are French that people may or may not have heard of. Not necessarily to plug people, but there's one called Anne Fontaine, who has a lovely series of shops all over France. One is actually here in Toulouse, where all of her clothing is in white and black. I mean, there's some lovely shops like that, but we're talking expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
We're talking
now, if
expensive.
somebody wants to go cheap, I would say, if you want to be truly cheap, you know,
Rue de Rivoli.
Rue de Rivoli is good.
Rue de Rivoli is wonderful.
Okay.
Rue de Rivoli is wonderful. You have chain stores, some of which, of course, exist already now in the States. So you have some of the European stores, but you also have, it's the main shopping drag. It's where all the people who are not wealthy go, and it's filled with lots and lots of stores. And you have a section that's just shoe stores, and you have a section that's all kinds of clothing stores. And it goes on forever, and it's a great place to shop.
Cool.
So
Cool.
that's what I would suggest.
There's also the Marché aux Puces.
Right.
There's one that I read about. I've never been. I don't know if you have. It's called Marché aux Puces de Saint-Ouen.
Saint-Ouen, no, the Saint-Ouen, no, but the Vanves is not bad. But this is not for clothing.
No, yeah,
It's
that's
just for
that's
objects.
antiquing kind
Yeah,
of
it's just for
things.
antiquing.
Yeah, old
And-
objects.
And she mentions the covered passages. Well, we did a podcast
That's
on
true.
the
We
covered
did.
passages.
We did.
And again, the Galerie Vivienne
This is the one that she
is,
points out.
is gorgeous. But the covered passages are either now mostly restaurants, which some of them are, or they're very upper class little
Right.
boutiques. So it depends on what you're looking for, but they're fun to look in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So that's so much for Champs-Élysées.
Yeah, yeah, Champs-Élysées. Honestly, I mean, if you want to go up the L'Arc de Triomphe, that's one thing.
It's really a great thing to do.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
never been. I have
You've
never
never
done
been?
it. No, every time I go to that area, it's to scare
Well-
a foreigner and
well-
drive around the roundabout
Oh,
as fast
no,
as I can.
Nobody, no, I would never do that. I'm not suicidal. No, what you do is you get off a bus or the metro at the very end of the Champs-Élysées at the it's the Station Concorde.
Mm-hmm.
No,
No,
not
Concorde, c'est l'autre
no,
côté.
Étoile.
yeah.
And you go. There's an underground passage that goes under the 12 lanes of crazy drivers, and you come out underneath the Arc de Triomphe, and it's really impressive. It's a
Is it?
wonderful thing to see. If for no other reason, two reasons. One, because the view looking east and west is unbelievable, because looking west, you have La Défense.
Yeah.
Looking east, you have the Champs-Élysées until you see the pinnacle of the Place de la Concorde.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, because you get to see just how much a megalomaniac Napoleon was. And it's
always a good reminder.
it is as a monument, it is unbelievable. It's really worth seeing. So I would say, yes, go to see that.
Okay, that's very good. But if you only have a week in Paris,
a week is fine. You have plenty of time for all of this.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, the second thing that she brings up, she says, don't get starstruck at meal times, and by that she means don't necessarily go for all the starred restaurants, because you will spend a fortune and wait a long time. And the other problem is, a lot of these restaurants, you have to reserve.
Yes.
And a lot of French restaurants, the only way you can reserve is over the phone. Mm-hmm. And if you're a foreigner and you're not comfortable speaking French, I mean, probably these restaurants have people who can speak English on the phone.
I'm sure now they do.
Yeah, by now they do. But it's a little tricky, because they only open at set times. And if you want to, if you think, oh, I'm going to... 2 in the morning, you're up and like, oh, I'm going to reserve this nice restaurant. Well, you can't do it right there and then. You have to wait until they open the next day.
Although I must say that since this article was written a while ago, I think they all now do have websites where you can reserve online.
Now, that's much better.
It's a much better thing. Yeah. However, I have never in my life eaten in a Michelin-starred restaurant.
Oh, really? I
never.
have.
See, never. So maybe one day I will. Maybe one day someone will be so nice as to invite me to one. Somebody out there to a 1-star one, not to mention 2 and 3, which I think would just not happen ever. There are other restaurants there are zillions of restaurants in Paris. There are so many good restaurants that I am not someone who thinks it's important personally to eat in a Michelin-starred restaurant. I know there are people who go to a place like Paris, and that is one of the things that they want to do.
Sure.
Somebody wants to go to the Jules Verne,
mm-hmm.
which is, of course, in the Eiffel Tower and is a starred Michelin restaurant.
Yep.
You have to reserve at least 3 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go to the Tour d'Argent, same thing. But I would go to the Jules Verne if somebody invited me, because it's in the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be wonderful food. But otherwise, if you want to spend $50, $60, you have a choice of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wonderful restaurants everywhere.
Right.
So I don't believe in being starstruck. Really.
Yeah, it's really not hard to eat well in Paris, but you do have to plan a little bit. Now, by now, Yelp is in France as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are French services that are equivalent to Yelp, but it's all in French, so it's probably not going to help you that much. But Yelp is here, and you can just look at what restaurants get good reviews right around you.
That's right.
And it's a really good way to do it.
The key word, I think, is neighborhood, because obviously in the outer arrondissement, where they're mostly residential neighborhoods, you might not have a lot of choice. But if you are in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even the 8th, I think you have a huge choice of restaurants.
Right.
And the 10th and 11th I would include in that, because that's in the Bastille area and everything. And you really, I would say it's hard to go wrong unless you go down to one of the 2 or 3 little areas, one of them being the Champs-Élysées, and one of the others, unfortunately, being the very small part of the Latin Quarter that's very close to the Notre Dame, where you get restaurants that you won't get ill from eating there, but you're going to spend very little money and you get what you pay for. You're going to get food that's been defrosted, that's not really real French cooking. But if kebabs, you can get a little,
and pizzas, which is
things
there's
like that.
Nothing wrong with
there's
that.
Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want.
Yeah.
I just want to say that she does mention one though that I do know. I've never eaten there. It's very close to where I stay very often in the 6th arrondissement. This restaurant called Le Comptoir. It's actually now she's written Comptoir du Relais, but now as far as I know, it's Le Comptoir. Maybe the other 2 words are in much smaller writing. I've never noticed them before. And it's a place that is tiny, absolutely tiny, and people stand online for at least an hour because they don't take reservations.
Uh-huh.
So there's a kind of place. If you are a real foodie,
Yeah.
then try it. Why not?
Sure, sure.
There are zillions other places that are good in almost all the neighborhoods.
Right, right.
And I would say if you want a nice meal in the dinner time, and now, of course, we're talking euros because you can convert it back according to whatever the exchange rate is. But I would say if you want to have a nice dinner, you can spend 30, 35 euros without the wine, and you will have a lovely meal.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are on a tight budget, I would say when you go out to restaurants, don't order wine at the restaurant because you will get, a 15 euro bottle of wine will cost you 50. And you can buy wine anywhere. You could have your wine maybe after dinner in your hotel room or something, whatever.
Personally, I think it would be a shame to not have at least a glass. And of course, in France, a glass of wine is never as expensive as a glass of wine in the States, whereas we're talking bottles, but Americans don't usually buy a bottle of wine anyway. But she mentioned something at the end, which I think is absolutely true. And that is, if you want to spend money in a really, really highly rated restaurant, go for lunch.
Yeah.
The price is almost half of what it would be for dinner.
Yes, and it's the same in America. Yeah, yeah.
It's systematic. So we're not talking about cafe brasseries, which basically have standard prices, and it's the same time of day.
Yeah.
But a high-end restaurant, nice restaurants, they always do a better price at lunch than at dinner. So it's a good way of doing it.
Now, the other thing that you need to know is that if you don't plan out your days a little bit, what's going to end up happening is you'll get hungry and you'll see something familiar, such as, a McDonald's or or Subway. Or
oh my God,
no! Now there's Chipotle in Paris. There's only 5 of them, but there's Chipotle in Paris, and you'll get more and more. So that's what's going to happen to you if you don't put a little thought into it. You might end up eating places that you could eat anywhere. So I would recommend that if your choice is between a restaurant you've never heard of but looks decent and a McDonald's, well, try the French one.
Not only that, but everywhere in Paris you have the Café Brasserie.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, the worst that can happen is that you have a nice salad or an omelet or something simple like that, but you can't go wrong if you go into a big cafe brasserie.
Right.
And they are everywhere.
Yes.
And they will give you, there the options are much larger because you can have pretty much anything you want and you're not required to have a full meal. So you can have just a soup if you want. You can have an omelet. You can have a salad. You can have a prefix meal. But the Café Brasserie, I think, are a great experience.
Really good. Yeah, it's a very French way to go.
It's a very French way
and
to
France is also full of places that specialize in lunchtime meals. For people who work.
Right.
People who work and who just go out for lunch. They don't necessarily go out for dinner, but they'll go out for lunch. And we have a ton of these restaurants that specialize in special, they're going to do special today. They're going to do something just for today.
Right.
And, and it's really fun. You should try things.
And they usually have very nice decoration inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Leather chairs, really nice.
That's good. Okay. The third point she makes is don't spend all day at the Louvre or Musée d'Orsay. Now, that's, yeah. Okay.
I'm shaking my head.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
This is one where it depends strictly on 2 things. How much time you have in Paris and what you're in Paris for. If you are in Paris to go shopping, to see the Eiffel Tower, to take a ride on the Seine River, and to walk down the Champs-Élysées, then there's no point in going to either of these museums or any other museum for that matter.
Yeah.
And you really can spend days in Paris and not go into a museum if you don't want to.
Right.
You can go.
Most Parisians. I mean, I just spent a week with my cousin who lives in Paris, and granted, she's young,
Parisian,
but she has never been to the Louvre.
Really?
Mm-mm. So I convinced her that she should go.
That's weird though, because most what that surprises me for the simple reason that schools take them to all of these.
And it so happens that her school never did.
Well, that's very odd. I mean, it really is, because one of the things you will find, and it's much better in the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, is that many of the museums, and specifically a museum like the Louvre, they are museums that have an enormous outreach program to bring school children in, and it's actually quite a lot of fun to see. However, okay, this is the deal. Obviously, if you're going to spend part of a day in a museum and you only have one museum you want to see, you have a choice because it depends on what kinds of things you want to see.
Right.
If you want to be able to say you've been to the Louvre and you've seen the Mona Lisa and you've seen the Winged Victory of Samothrace and all of the things that the Louvre is famous for, then just do it. You
Right.
can go in and out in 2 hours. It is true that like most of the major museums in Paris, is packed, and particularly the Louvre is super packed
Still
most of the
like
time.
last week in
Like-
November.
Last week was not as bad because we went at the end of the day. We were there at 5 o'clock, but I had forgotten that it was school. It was Toussaint. So
School
we had lots
vacation.
of kiddies.
Yes.
Not kitties, but kiddies. I would have been fun seeing a lot of kitties running around the museum, but actually it was little kitties. And I personally, because I spent a lot of my life doing art education, I think that's wonderful. A lot of people grumble about it because you have the kids sitting on the floor trying to draw something because they've been told that this is what they're supposed to do. I think it's really great, but it did make it for it was a little bit more crowded than I expected and a bit noisy, but it was because they were there. Otherwise, there are certain times of the year when it is a little less crowded, and that is for sure starting at the end of November. And also, if you go, the Louvre is open 2 days a week till 9:45 at night. You can go towards the end of the day and avoid a lot of the crowds. You
Yeah.
can go after an early meal. You can go at 5. I find 5 to 7 is a great time to go, actually. It calms down. If you only want to go to be able to see a couple of things and say you've seen them, you can be in and out in 2 hours.
Yeah.
If you are a passionate art history lover and you want to see all the things it has, I had a woman with me this past week. She is planning on spending a day in the Louvre. And there are cafes there and everything else, as we mentioned before. I think it really depends on what your interests are. And I would never say to somebody, don't spend a day there. It's really what you want to see.
Yeah.
It is true also that there are many, 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 many museums in Paris. And I have never seen all of them.
Yeah.
And it is true that there are museums that have to do with things other than art per se, that there are museums about fashion, there's museums about chocolate, there's museums about natural history.
Yeah, there's a museum of magic that I really enjoyed. I got a kick out of it. It's pretty small. I can't remember where it is. It's been years, but it was really good. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's zillions. There's a museum that's devoted to postal service. That talks about the history of stamps and things like that. There's the Carnavalet, which is a museum of the history of Paris, which is, by the way, free and run by the city. And it really gives a history of the city itself. It's not, so there are some art objects, but one room is filled with ancient signs, the kind that they used to put outside of, restaurants and auberge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can find something for everybody in terms of museums in Paris. And I think that it's really just a question of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
If you come to Paris and you want to make sure you get to see the Impressionist artists,
Then go to Orsay.
Then you go to Orsay because
Yeah.
everyone knows that's got a huge collection of Impressionist painting.
Yeah.
So it's
But if you don't care that much, then
then
skip
don't
it.
then skip it.
Skip it.
And
yeah.
and you really can find a museum that suits you.
With a little bit of planning.
With a little bit of planning,
Yeah, you need
which is
to-
obviously one of the things that's really nice to do is to go online or to listen to us
Yep.
and
And
think,
go visit our website.
and visit our website and think about what it is you want to do in Paris, because some people really just want to do the things that they've heard about. Bless you, go ahead and do them.
Yeah, of course.
You'll come back a second time and try different things.
It's like wine. There's no wrong wine.
No.
There's the wine you like.
That's right.
it. Just order the food you like or the place you like. Just do what you like. But see, that's why we're trying to help you decide of all the, listening to us, you'll probably get a feel for what sounds like more fun than other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's La Villette. There's the Museum of Natural History, which is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. So find something that will suit your needs
Exactly.
and make you happy. Okay, number 4 on her list. Don't commit a fashion faux pas.
Well, it is true that in Paris, people tend to be a little bit more stylish than in the rest of France. That said, things have changed a little bit. It is true that most women do not wear shorts in Paris. And in fact, most French women consider shorts to be something to wear at the seashore, or when you're in the mountains, when you are on vacation in the countryside.
Correct.
French women do not wear shorts when they go out in the streets. But
Still, they wear skirts.
Young people, people who I'd say between 18 and 30 are starting to do more of that. But they don't wear Bermuda shorts. They wear little cute things. I mean, they wear skirt shorts, or they wear little dress shorts or things like that. And it is really, it's not as if somebody will arrest you for it.
No.
But it is very much something that indicates that you are a foreigner and a tourist. And men, interestingly enough, can get away with wearing Bermuda type shorts in Paris, the kind that come almost down to the knee.
Yeah, men wear capris in France. That's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, and they wear them with polo shirts or with regular shirts.
My husband laughs his head off. The first year we started seeing men in capris, he was like, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah, but they wear also the ones that just cut up above the knee. I mean, it's considered to be. But women tend to wear either capri pants or skirts or dresses in the summertime.
Yeah.
And obviously, the other thing is you don't wear very, very short clothes and wear almost nothing on top if you're going into a church.
Right.
And that's something that is a general rule of etiquette.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Now, of course, I'm a very casual person, and I tend to buy most of my clothes in America because I find them more comfortable and more to my liking. So I always stand out in a crowd, and it's not a big deal. I mean, like, I don't even notice anymore, but I do know there are circumstances where I need to dress up a little bit, you know? And I tell myself, you're like a Christmas tree today. Dress up, put ornaments on.
Oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it.
And so I do that on occasion, but I don't do it every day. And I live in France, and it's not a problem.
Right,
just,
I see she said here that French are more casual these days. Absolutely. From my very first trip to France till now, it has changed a lot. Yeah. So you don't have the suit and tie look anymore, and that includes
not so much.
That includes in restaurants. Just wear nice clothes. Don't wear funky jeans. But basically, it is much, much more casual. It's just that it's stylish casual.
Exactly.
That's all.
Even if they look frumpy, you can be sure that they put some thought into it.
That's right.
It's French people have this. It's kind of like a cultural reflex to give some thought to how they're going to dress.
Yeah.
Whereas Americans will throw something on because they have to wear clothes.
I mean, let's face it. If you go to the Luxembourg Gardens on Sunday, everyone's in there jogging because they've gone and run a little bit, and they're sitting there, and maybe they're reading the newspaper, maybe they're having an ice cream cone, maybe they're walking with their family.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go midtown in Paris, and you're going to go walk around, whether you go out for a drink or whether you go to shop, you will not go in your jogging. You just will not. You will wear nice clothes. And, nice clothes can be just a nice pair of jeans and decent shoes and a top, but it will not really have that frumpy appearance. It just won't.
Yeah. But if that's not who you are, it's not a good, big deal.
And, the whole thing about wearing those big clunky tennis shoes. Now I noticed more and more
people do,
that because in the States we have more and more of good walking shoes that are not like that are black or a dark color. It's much better to do that, and so you don't have these big white things sticking out that people notice from a distance.
Legs,
just get them in a dark color; it'll be fine.
Yeah, and women accessorize a lot, wear big scarves and hat. Well, hats not so much, but sometimes in the winter you'll find some.
But I think that especially in the summertime, you just think that you don't want to look like you just came off the wagon in the countryside.
Yeah. And French people also wear more fitted clothing.
Yes, they do.
They don't like to wear baggy.
They don't like baggy.
Anything.
And in fact, it actually doesn't even matter what your size is. It isn't a question of whether you're really slim or not. way clothes are cut to be fitted is closer to the body in general. That's a rule.
Yep. Okay, point number 5. Don't get around town in a cab. What do you think about that? I don't know. In Paris, I walk.
I don't know. I think that it's a kind of funny thing to say about to say don't do in general. I think that it depends on where you're going. It depends on what time of the day or night. And if you don't want to be squashed into a metro train where there are zillions of people who are on their way to or from work, and you have the money to go, why not? I don't know. I mean, I have no particular opinion about it. I think that a legitimate taxi is one that has the official sign with a number up above. Do never get into a car that doesn't have that, no matter what. If you are staying in a hotel, hotels will call a cab for you if you're trying to go someplace at night or if it's at the other side of the city. Buses run wonderfully almost all day long and stop at 1 o'clock in the morning. So you have to know that certain bus lines don't run after 10 or 11 at night. If you're going someplace, I think it's much nicer if you're not taking a cab to take a bus if it's not close enough to walk to.
Yeah, because you can see.
Because you can
stuff.
see.
Yeah.
And I think that that's fine. Buses can sometimes be very slow. I think it really depends on where you're going and what you're doing. So I don't see why.
That wouldn't be a big deal to you.
No, I mean, a cab service, I'd say if you've gone out at night and you've gone to a concert, the theater, out to a restaurant, and it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and you don't want to wait 20, 25 minutes to see if a bus is coming, get a cab. What's the big deal?
Yeah. And the one thing that she mentions in this article is Vélib. You know, the bicycles that you can rent. But she says it doesn't work for most Americans because you need a smart chip
That's
card.
right.
So that's probably still the case. I don't know. I've never tried to get a...
I believe it is still true.
Yeah.
It is. But again, Vélib is wonderful if you are someone who is not worried about zigging and zagging in between cars. I know I have a hard time with that. I'd much rather get one and go into a park or along one of the canals.
Yeah.
But I find that it's not my idea of pleasure is to be on a bike and breathe in the fumes of the cars. But a lot of people do. And it is true that you can get through a lot of the traffic that way. It's an alternative.
Yeah.
So why not?
But be careful because French bikers, they really, they're used to the cars.
They're used to the cars. And they really do zig and zag in between.
Yeah, in between cars. And if you do that and you're not used to it, you might end up in trouble. So anyway. That's
of course, as you
public
said,
safety announcement.
Right, public safety announcement. But I think, that, of course, the wonderful thing to do is walk.
Yeah,
and
walking is really good. Paris is not
wonderful.
That big, really. I mean, it's if you're used to walking, and if the weather cooperates, of course, if it's miserable and wet. Even I don't like to walk when it's miserable and
wet.
But
it's certainly, especially in the central part of it, it's a wonderful city to walk around in. You have little courtyards you discover that way. You go through any big doorway just to see what's on the other side.
And you should do that. If the door's open, look.
Go, look, yes. Don't worry about it. You can always get back out, It's wonderful. That's what I loved first about Paris was walking around.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this in another episode, but I'll say it again. Generally, if it's an automatic door in France, like a gate, there's a button inside somewhere that you push to open
out.
It again. So it might not be a big red bright button. It might be a discreet button, but there's going to be something. So just look for the button. It looks like a doorbell usually. Okay.
Oh, I see there she talks about dog droppings. Let's say a word about that. How's that? Okay. Cleaning up the city. Paris has become much cleaner than it used to be. It is a city that now in most areas is very, very clean.
That's wonderful.
Which means that you don't have to worry about dog droppings. You don't have to worry about too much garbage on the streets. And that makes it a much easier place to walk around. You don't have to spend your time looking down. You can actually spend your time looking up at the tops of the buildings. There are still a few areas where that is not the case. And so you do have to be careful. It is unfortunately one of the least attractive traits of walking around a city in France because we have that as a problem also in Toulouse where we live, that there are areas where people do not clean up after their animals.
Which I have 2 dogs and I clean up all the time. I always have bags with me. I don't
Right.
see what the problem is.
I don't see what the problem is
Yeah.
either. But that is, in fact, one of the things that happened in the last 15, 20 years where they really did start to enforce the cleanup rule in Paris. And that makes it a much more pleasant experience.
Yeah, yeah.
All the
So-
way around.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. Okay, we're moving on to number 6.
Number 6.
Okay, don't seek out bohemian ambiance on the left bank. I have no idea about that.
Okay. Well, I do. But I guess, again, one of these things, it's for people who want to go to some of the places that they have read about because they knew that certain writers or artists used to live there, used to hang out there.
Well, they're probably dead. So.
I don't feel like I like the idea of doing that. See, so
Okay.
but so if you go to, this is what you have to know. I just went through this with the crowd I had last week. If you go to the cafe where Hemingway hung out, then you know that you can go in, walk around, take a look, and leave in 5 minutes if that's what you want. If you want the experience of sitting there so that you can tell people you sat in the cafe where Hemingway had whatever alcohol he was drinking at that time, where he sat and read and wrote some essay that he was going to put into a newspaper, where James Baldwin wrote one of
Right.
his famous books while he was living in France, then just accept the fact that these are places that have become tourist attractions, even though they may be very lovely physically inside.
Sure.
And that you're paying the price of having that to do.
And maybe you don't care about that.
And maybe you don't care about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
If you want to pay your coffee 10 euros instead of 3,
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, it's not just in places like this that if you go to Café de la Paix, which is this very famous, very chic cafe right across from the Opera Garnier, you will spend that kind of money as well.
Yeah.
But there are people who don't care.
Sure.
So it's up to you. I mean, and the other thing is that on the left bank between the Saint-Germain area, which is one of the most beautiful parts of Paris, and going towards Montparnasse, where you have the other cafes that we talked about in our Montparnasse podcast.
Yes.
You have gorgeous places. You have
was
gorgeous,
last week.
gorgeous brasseries, gorgeous restaurants. You know what?
No, not last week.
Sit in
Weeks ago.
an Art Nouveau restaurant with its original decor and have let's not exaggerate, a €5 coffee instead of a €2.50 coffee.
Yeah.
Okay? I would do it once
Sure,
because I want to
sure.
be able to say that's where I sat, and I can imagine Hemingway sitting next to me saying, "Oh, I'd love to put you in one of my books." So there you are.
And completely massacre your reputation.
And I don't care. It's just I'd be in a Hemingway book. I mean, bohemian ambience. There is no such thing anymore. That's the problem. So why bother to talk about it? It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Bohemia has disappeared. Okay. What has happened is that certain parts of the city, and this is true, I'm a New Yorker, there are certain parts of the city that used to be where the poor artists lived and the poor musicians lived. What happens inevitably, it's the same thing in Paris, is that after a while, other people go, what a cool area to live in. And it's the people with money that move in, push out the poor unknown artists and musicians and
Right.
writers,
Right.
and they turn that area into a much more gentrified area where
Sure.
nobody can afford the rents except for rich people, and it moves on to another part of the city.
Right.
This is what happened in Paris.
So do you know where it is today in Paris?
Well, it is around the 10th and 11th arrondissement,
Okay.
except that basically the reality is that there's nothing in Paris that's not expensive.
Yeah.
So
Especially if you're paying in dollars and once you're buying euros, although the euro is lower now than it was just a few years ago.
yeah, just a few years ago. But
Yeah.
but I'm thinking in terms of people who live in Paris, not just people visiting.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing to do is
It's not like London, though. London is seriously expensive.
well,
I think Paris is cheaper than London.
probably is. Yes, probably is. But if people are looking for the bohemian atmosphere that existed in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, it doesn't exist anymore because people aren't like that anymore.
Yeah.
And if you want to go instead to an area where you have real young artists hanging out and trying to make it, then I would say yes, it's the 10th and 11th around the Bastille and behind that area. Or if you want to go to an area that's very mixed, and that we will probably be doing a podcast about very soon, and that's the Belleville area. And that's an area where you have a combination of newly arrived immigrants, young people who are artists. It's a real part of Paris, but it's not necessarily a chic, beautiful part of Paris.
Right.
That's all.
It's kind of grimy.
Yeah.
By comparison.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, very good. Okay.
And number 7.
Don't waste time at the Eiffel Tower.
I am absolutely in disaccord with this.
I am too, actually.
It is wonderful, the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I think you need to see the Eiffel Tower. Okay. The thing is, I'm kind of afraid of heights. And so, to me, going all the way up to the Eiffel Tower was a little bit disconcerting.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. But I still loved it. So I would still do it. But I can see why there are people who might want to skip it. And if your whole point is to see the Eiffel Tower, well, when you're on top of it, you don't see it.
No, you don't see it. But you know what? There are 3 things. Number 1, it is absolutely gorgeous. Day and night. It is one of the most amazing structures you will ever see. Number 2, you can go to the top because it gives you a view that is absolutely spectacular. Or you can just go to the first level, or you can go to the second level.
That's true.
You don't have to go all the way up to the top.
True.
Seeing it at night is unbelievably magnificent. And you can walk across the Seine to the other side where the Trocadero Esplanade is. And you get the perfect picture and the perfect view, and you don't have to go up to the top. However, I think that to say don't waste time at the Eiffel Tower is silly, because it is one of the most important landmarks, and it is the symbol of Paris.
Yeah.
And it's really gorgeous.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah. What she recommends instead is going to... There's a rooftop restaurant at the Musée du Quai Branly where you can get a super nice view of the Eiffel Tower. Or anywhere where you can go up a little bit, you will see the Eiffel Tower.
But that's true. There are lots of places. And again, if you don't want to go up to the top, which I think is a wonderful thing to do, you can take a bateau mouche boat ride on the Seine, day or night. It goes right along. It goes right along. It goes underneath. Take it at night. You get to see it lighted up, sprinkling like diamonds.
Yeah.
Or walk across the Seine to the Trocadero, which is up a little high, and you get a view where you can take in the whole tower, and you can do what everybody else does. You can put your hand out and pretend you're holding it in your hand if you want to take a cliche.
Yes.
To me, I would say don't waste your time doing that. Waste your time on other things. Maybe there are other things like don't go down the Champs-Élysées, but definitely take in the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It's a really fun.
It's really neat
thing to do.
And the
in
history
the
is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Okay, number 8. Oh, you don't have the rest of the papers. Okay, I'll just tell you. Don't book the cheapest hotel, is what she says. And she says that the city hotels are really, really expensive, and that as a result, people try to go further out, and that it's probably best if you can't afford that, you should you should stay in 1 through 10 or 11 maybe arrondissement, because then you'll be somewhat close to the center. And if you can't afford the hotels, look into renting an apartment. But that's for people who are staying longer, I would assume. I mean, like, if you're not staying even a week, maybe you can't.
No, I think, again, it's really a matter of choice. It's a matter of the amount of time you're spending in the city.
Yeah.
My personal philosophy is, and this is not just in Paris, but traveling in any city, is if I'm going to spend less than 4 days, I want to be in the dead center.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to lose time traveling in and out of a city. I want to be able to go out and walk and get where I want to go.
Yeah.
And I will spend a little bit extra money for that. Now, the other thing is, and unfortunately it's a reality, with age, you want more comfort.
Yeah, of course.
And if you're 20 years old, you don't care about where you sleep. If you're 30 or 40, you start to prefer to have something a little nicer. If you're over 45 or 50, you don't want to be in something that a 20-year-old will sleep in.
Yeah.
However, I think that you have a wide choice. And of course now, right now, there is the possibility of, even if you spend a minimum of 3 nights in the city, of being able to rent a studio or a small apartment, which of course is very convenient if you really want to.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do also with whether your meals are going to be out or in.
Right. So there are many reasons to get an apartment instead of a hotel room. One is if you would prefer to have some food that you prepare.
Exactly.
Instead of going out,
right.
Which I understand because,
some people have certain things they want to eat, not eat.
Yes, and that's just fine. That's a very good reason. Or if you have very young children, sometimes,
right.
Hotels are a bit of a problem with
right.
Very young children. There are good reasons. And when this article was written, they didn't have Airbnb.
That's right.
Airbnb has really changed a lot of, it's made it really easy for people to book an apartment,
And there are other services as well, but just be careful, be warned, because it just was on the news again the other night on French news. The government's probably going to start cracking down and start making them declare their money and paying taxes.
Right,
which
I think they're going to be hotel tax.
Which, quite honestly,
it makes sense.
It makes sense. It simply means that the prices will go up a little bit.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you have a long stay someplace, it is very nice and sometimes very easy because you have other facilities in an apartment for washing things and stuff like that you don't have if you stay in a hotel room.
Yeah. Now, I know of one very inexpensive hotel right downtown. You can stay, I think they have one room in there, and just the one room that will sleep 5 for like 120 euros or something, and it's really close to Notre Dame.
Now, when were you there?
Oh, just 3 years ago.
Probably about 140 now.
Maybe. But anyway, that's to sleep 5.
To sleep 5,
that's
right.
really
That's pretty
cheap
good.
in Paris.
I didn't even know there were rooms that sleep 5.
Yeah. And so I'll put a link to that. I'll see if I can add it to our little hotel widget, if I can find it by name.
I know a lot of hotels, in the particularly, of course, in the 5th and 6th arrondissement. And I know a group of hotels that are not expensive in relation to others. Yeah. However, what is true of these places is that, interestingly enough, they're usually family run and they will not take reservations more than 3 months ahead.
Oh.
And so it's very interesting to know that these are the places that are very often the best finds, but you will not find them listed on Booking, on Venery, on Expedia, because it's by word of mouth and because they just list as being hotels in a specific neighborhood. And I think that one of the things that people need to do, because this is true in a lot of places, is make a decision about where they want to stay. Mm-hmm. Now, it is true, I think, that, yes, it's better to stay as close to the center of things. But there are certain arrondissements in Paris, and we're talking Paris now because I think it's different for every city. For instance, the 14th arrondissement, which is an arrondissement that most people don't really think about because it's not necessarily a huge tourist attraction.
Yeah.
There are wonderful hotels, and all you need to do is get on the nearest metro or bus, and you are actually 5 or 10 minutes away from all the things you want to see.
So that would be a good place.
So that's a great place, I mean, there are lots of places that have small hotels. Paris has, I don't know how many thousands of hotels.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Maybe I'll get you to give me a list of these hotels that you think are not listed, and I'll see if I can find them and put them on our widget.
Now, when she says don't stay in the cheapest, again, it's how old are you?
How plush do you need it?
How plush do you need? The reality of Paris hotels is, and we're not talking about the palaces, we're not talking about the Maurice, we're not talking about the Crillon, we're not talking about those kinds of places. We're talking about there are 2 things about Paris hotels. The rooms are small because unless you're in a modern skyscraper, these are old buildings.
Yeah.
And that means that everything is small. Usually the bathrooms are fine, but they're small.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to accept the fact that that's the kind of hotel you will find in the city center of Paris.
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to spend upwards of 200 or 250 euros a night.
Honestly, if you pay more than 300 euros a night, I don't care which one you book, it's probably going to be fine.
I wouldn't spend that much money.
Right. So the difficulty is finding a hotel that will be good for you. Around 150.
That's right. I think that's a reasonable price.
Around Paris, pretty much. That's what you're going to be paying.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I think if you're talking...
The super cheap one, I tried because it was a special circumstance. We were with people who didn't want to spend very much money. So I said, okay, we're just going to try this crazy... It's more like a youth hostel than a hotel, really.
There are a few of those, too, by the way.
Yeah. But it was fine. We slept comfortably. It was just fine.
But you just mentioned something that maybe we should mention to people. There's a series of youth hostels in Paris that will also take adults and will also take non-students. And it's Spartan.
Yeah.
It's usually shared bathrooms. But they're in nice neighborhoods.
Yes.
And there's one near the Luxembourg Gardens. There's one in the 4th in the Marais. And I have stayed in both of them. And if you really have that tight a budget, you can do that too.
Sure. It's not
There's
a problem.
no problem with that.
Yeah. So I'll get you to write me some names and I'll do some research and I'll try and add them because I can select in our little hotel widget, I can select hotels by name and I can just put the ones that we've mentioned.
And one of the ones I stay in with some of the groups when I'm working for other people is a very lovely 2-star hotel in the Saint-Germain area, and it's not expensive. So these are fine.
Yeah.
You can find what you want.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
No bed bugs.
Oh, hopefully not.
No.
I've never seen bed bugs in France. I don't know. Maybe they
do
exist.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right.
Do you think they only are on the other side of the Atlantic?
I'm hoping. Okay. Number 9 is don't fill up on croissant.
What kind of a ridiculous thing is that to say? I don't know. I mean, fill up on whatever you want. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
I mean, what... I don't understand that. I mean...
She says, instead, munch on macaroons.
I would much rather have a croissant than a macaroon.
See, that's a personal choice.
I mean,
you want a croissant,
what kind of a ridiculous thing is that to say? I don't know. I was like, don't fill up on what? I have had people who come on the tour for a week with me, and every night wanted to have a creme brulee in a different place because they wanted to compare creme brulees. All the better to them. I mean,
sure.
I think this is your own experience.
Right.
You have a desire to taste. Don't fill up on chocolate. Don't fill up on croissant. Don't fill up on pastry.
Bread, maybe. Don't, because bread is so cheap in France.
And
so good. You might be tempted to eat a baguette.
But so is pastry. I mean, if you want
But pastry, I mean, honestly, you're not going to fill up on... How many pastries are you going to eat before you're full?
I don't know, but I think if somebody wants to try that as an experience, an experiment,
Let us know.
I would really like to have them write to us afterwards and tell us, can
How
you
many
spend a week in Paris just eating pastries, what happens to your body afterwards, I mean, I don't know. It's like, don't fill up on onion soup. Paris still has onion soup. Now, that doesn't mean that every single restaurant that has it, it's really homemade. But you could go around and if your thing is onion soup, you could eat onion soup.
Of course.
I don't know. If you want to have 2-3 croissants every morning, my goodness, it's your French experience.
Of course. I would say maybe watch out on the bread because that will really fill you up.
However, I must admit, having lived in various parts of France, there is something about a good croissant in Paris that is better than a croissant anywhere else in France. Oh, absolutely.
Well, I don't even like croissants, so...
There's something in the water, probably, because the real French Parisian baguette and croissant, you cannot imitate it anywhere else.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. No. And I'm a bread person, so... Yeah. Take my word for it.
I don't think I agree, but okay, whatever.
And you can have your macaroons. I'll have my croissant bread.
Macaroons are fine. I wouldn't,
Don't fill up on croissant. That's like... Okay. No comment.
But you should really try different things.
Of course you should.
If you are inclined to. Try different things. There's so much. Like, there's stuff in France that you won't find in the U.S. Cold cuts. Charcuterie, yeah. That stuff.
Cheeses.
The cheeses, you're not gonna. Well, more and more, there's, especially if you order on cheese.com, you will find a bunch that you didn't used to. But it's It's so good. And don't be afraid, to try things. If it looks scary, buy one. Try it.
I can understand if people have certain limitations because they have restrictions in their diet. Then you have to, pay attention to what you have. But otherwise, obviously, the whole point is to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And don't get stuck just getting steak frites every day.
See, that's a problem. Even for us who live in France, when we travel, you go to a restaurant that you don't know, and you don't know they're offering some sort of souffle or some other thing, but you don't know if it's going to be any good. And you go, well, I know for sure I'll be going to enjoy the steak frites. Although
I don't do that.
I don't enjoy steak in France at all.
Neither
so
do
I try to avoid that completely. But there's all sorts of, most restaurants will offer steak frites.
And they really,
there's
usually such a big choice. And, just one thing though, and this, I don't know if we talked about it when we talked about our food in general. If you are in a restaurant that has dishes of the day, choose those because they are the freshest.
Yeah.
It means that's what they've made for the day. That's what they've gone to the market and bought. So whether it's the soup of the day, the salad of the day, the main dish of the day, choose that.
That's usually a good bet.
It's really a good bet.
Yeah, if you're hesitant, the special for the day is
always a good deal.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do, I think. All right, and the 10th thing that she mentions is don't buy into stereotypes, meaning you've heard that Parisians are rude. You've heard that they're not going to smile at you, all of that. Is that true? Is that not true? Yeah, she's shaking her head like.
I mean, I don't know. It's like our New Yorkers rude. I mean, the chances are that you'll find somebody that might be able to help you. We had this past week. I'll give you an example. 3 times walking up and down a street with a group, pointing to something. 3 times I had somebody either come out the door of the building or who was walking by, who was from the neighborhood and added something to the conversation. And and one of the times it was an older guy who said, "Oh, I love listening to you all talk in English because I'm trying to learn more English." and he was just really sweet. And I mean, I don't find that people are nasty or impolite or rude. What you do have is that in very heavily tourist areas where you go into a restaurant, the waiters tend to be overworked and they're running around and they don't have a lot of patience. And I think one of the problems very often, and this happened once, was that especially if you are unfamiliar with things on a menu, even if they're written both in French and English, people have a tendency to take too long before they decide what they want to eat. Yeah. And the waiters get impatient.
Yeah. But that would be in any big city.
I guess so.
And I think the ratio of waiter per customer is lower in America, because what happens is in America, the restaurant actually pays the staff very little.
Very little.
They survive on tips. In France, the restaurant pays the people, the servers, the waiters, and so they have to be really strategic.
Right.
And they're paid pretty decent. It's not not
great, but it's a decent salary.
Yeah, it's a decent salary. And some of these people have been doing this for 40 years, and they're very good at their job, but they need to be efficient and fast.
That's right.
That's what's asked of them.
Particularly in the Café Brasseries. If you go into a tiny little restaurant, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
But we're talking about lunchtime, big, or even dinner, and it's a big establishment, and they're running around, and they come over, they give you the menu, and then they'll come back a few minutes later. If you still don't know, well, it may be another 10, 15 minutes before they come back to the table.
Right.
If you're standing on the street and you ask somebody directions, the chances are they'll try and help you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you have to be polite, I mean, that's just all.
Right, you have to say bonjour, excusez-moi, that sort of thing. But the thing that Parisians don't like, and I'm sure it's the same anywhere else, is when you have a big group of very slow-walking people that are looking at stuff and they're trying to get past you to get to work or something.
That's very urban anyway.
Yeah, and they get annoyed, and so they're not going to be so happy to see you, especially since they have groups like that constantly. So yeah, that happens, I'm sure. But overall, I think the stereotypes are much harder than the French than they need to be. Maybe it used to be true 20 years ago.
Maybe,
but anymore, I mean, I find Parisians to be just fine as long as you you have to say bonjour. And you have to say
merci.
Au revoir, merci. Try a few words of French
and smiling, that helps.
Yeah.
But I really agree with you. I don't think. I think that the nasty, unfriendly Parisian is to a great extent a thing of the past.
Okay, so I've got a few other items that I thought about that some people might say you need to skip on. Bateau mouche. The little boats on the Seine.
I love them.
You love them.
I love them. I have done them during the day. I love them at night. I mean, and I have done.
And it's not very expensive.
I think I've done about 20 of them now.
Yeah. It's not
wonderful.
that expensive.
No.
Is it like 15 euros?
10.
10. There you go.
10 euros. Yeah. You can take them. We take them. It's not a dinner. It's just the bateau mouche.
Yeah.
You take it off the Pont Neuf.
Uh-huh.
There are 3 or 4 places where you can take them.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 5 minutes. There's commentary now. Interestingly enough, instead of doing it in 12 languages and all of them being incomprehensible, they just do it in French and English because they assume that almost everybody will speak some English.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to see.
And is it better
city.
Quality? Can you
yes,
hear okay?
Absolutely. And
That's
it's
good.
usually, at least the ones we've been doing, it's Americans or English-speaking people that speak, so you really do understand what they say.
That's good. That's good.
It's a great way to see the banks of the river, to see up and down. You get to see Orsay, Louvre, Eiffel Tower, the buildings, the bridges. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to see the bridges from underneath. And, when you're approaching the bridges, they're beautiful. And they're beautifully lit, too.
They're beautifully lit. And, now in the summertime, ever since they started doing the Paris Plage, they started also putting the guinguettes and all these things back on the banks of the river.
Oh, those are fun.
So they're
you have to explain what those are.
Well, they're cafes where people dance.
Uh-huh.
And they're now all along the central part of the Seine River in the summertime in Paris.
Uh-huh.
It's wonderful.
They even do that in Toulouse now. They set up this area, Quai de la Dorade.
Oh, yeah?
Where they set up a big
dancing?
dance floor. And every day it's different types of dance.
Oh, how cool.
Last summer I was there on a couple of occasions. And there was Charleston one day
during
and
the day?
tango. Yeah, during the day.
Oh.
And they set up these big speakers and they invite clubs, people who do social dance as a hobby.
Yeah.
They invite them to come, and so you always have dancers, and people join in, and it's very fun. It's in the middle of the day, and it's very fun. So I'm sure in Paris
it's wonderful.
they do that too.
And of course, I think it's open to anybody. To me, the Bateau Mouche is just a fun thing to do.
Okay, very good. Musée Rodin.
It's a museum that is a museum of Rodin sculpture in a very lovely little park, in a little mansion, in a very exclusive part of Paris. Mm-hmm. If you like sculpture, it's a nice thing to do because the gardens are beautiful. Mm-hmm. The building itself has a little bit of stuff in it, but what's most impressive and interesting about it is the sculptures that are in the garden.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And now they have a wonderful little cafe, so you can have a really nice little lunch there as well. And they built a special new entranceway to it so that you get a little bit of background information. To be honest, I love Rodin's work, but to me, it's a minor museum.
Uh-huh. And I loved it.
Loved it.
I just went once, but I loved it. I could go again. That was
I
one
think
that
what I
really
like
enjoyed.
best is the park.
Yeah, the park was spectacular, I must say. If it's a nice weather, it would be very fun for me to see that again. Okay. Palais Royal, les jardins du Palais Royal.
Well, these are things I actually want to talk about on a podcast.
Okay.
So I have a hard time just saying yes or no to it as a thing like that. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Walking along the Seine. The Seine being the river.
No, it depends on whether you're talking about up above where the booksellers are, or down below
near
underneath,
the water.
right?
Yeah.
Up above, it's really nice. When you go along the stretch that's near Notre Dame or Ile de la Cité, you can sit out at the park and just sort of look out over at the water and see the boats. Walking past where all these booksellers are is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
You can, if you're into old prints and books and stuff like that.
Really old.
Really old, yeah.
Stuff that
Yeah,
falling
it's a
apart.
real. I don't know when it started, the tradition of doing booksellers, but they've been around for a long time.
Right, and they're very small, independent.
Right.
Like they maybe they have 200 books there. You know,
Right.
but each person has selected books,
Right.
and they usually specialize in books about the esoteric, or books about this or about that.
Exactly.
Or, you know, and so
Yeah, and people go there especially when they look for something
Yeah.
specific. Now,
Yeah.
walking down below, there are stretches that are really fun, as I mentioned, like where they now have the cafes and the dancing, and there's now a freestanding garden and a park as you go east towards the 13th arrondissement. Parts of it are a little bit funkier. I wouldn't necessarily walk along them. Not so much because they're really dangerous, because I don't think that they are. I've never really heard of it. It's just that they're not that agreeable. And,
Yeah.
they sometimes have odors you don't want to have. So they're not particularly dangerous, although I would say that you have to use common sense, and you
Yeah.
don't do pretty much anything in an isolated area by yourself after a certain hour of the night,
Yeah.
no matter what. But otherwise, walking along the Seine is fun.
Yep, very good. The other ones we've already mentioned. Rue des Martyrs. Apparently, now I've never been. Apparently, Rue des Martyrs is a very nice, bustling street full of people and full of small shops that are not so expensive.
Rue des Martyrs is the one that people who think that they're really cool and are into the new in neighborhood talk about.
Oh, I see.
Rue des Martyrs starts down below and works up into the part of the Montmartre that's just under the funicular.
Okay.
And if you get off at, I think it's Notre Dame de Lorette, you turn onto Rue des Martyrs and go up. Personally, I did it, in fact, last year because everybody had been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the area around Les Abbesses and Montmartre much more. It's also wonderful, tiny little shops. Nothing special.
Okay, so you might skip that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Okay, we talked about a lot of things, and we've been going on forever.
Forever and ever.
I think you need to rest your voice.
I need to rest my voice.
I know. She came back from Paris with germs.
I came back from Paris with germs, but also with this, I spent 8 days just blah, 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 blah. And even for me, that's a lot of blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
that's a lot of talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of talking. Okay, time to rest your voice.
Time to rest my voice.
Thank you, Elise.
You're welcome,
All
honey.
right. Very good. Okay, so we're going to get done with this, but I want to remind everybody, Black Friday is coming up. You're probably going to buy some stuff. You're probably going to buy some stuff on Amazon. Go to joinusinfrance.com/Amazon and show us a little love. That's it.
Not just on Black Friday.
No, not just on Black Friday. Any day.
I heard that they're
Any
going to do a
day.
Black Thursday too these days.
Oh, no.
I hope not. Everybody has to have Thanksgiving off.
Yeah, that would be good.
That
I
would be
think.
good, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
that would be good. Except for the cooks.
Except for the cooks.
The cooks, please don't take
I
Thanksgiving
know.
off.
I know.
I know I won't be having Thanksgiving off. So anyway. All right, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you soon.
Au revoir.
What is a la mode in English now?
What?
Doesn't that mean a la carte?
A la mode is when you add an ice cream ball to something.
You're even worse than I am.
No, it's true. That's what it's called.
I think she means something fashionable.
No, in America, if you say, "Do you want your pie à la mode?" It doesn't mean you want your fashionable pie.
She's a Frenchie. I have a feeling have your dinner. Put a ball of ice cream on it. I think she means it's supposed to be where the chic go or something like that.
Okay. All right, let's try this again.
Pie a la mode, you're right. It's pie
Yeah,
a la mode.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right, God.